Welcome CSC103, M2, W1, W2 for fall 2020. Since it's October, we're going to work on a 3D project of a pumpkin. And after we worked on a cube with 3 holes in it, or actually there were 6 altogether, we're going to try to work on a pumpkin. And here's an example of what I worked on, and it looks very primitive. I'll kind of move around here and show you different views of it. There's from underneath, there's straight on, the top. The stem isn't very impressive when you see it from the top. It looks more like a cone, but I did the best I could. The body is a bunch of squashed spheres that are kind of rotated around and spun around at degrees, rotating around the same center point. And there's triangles for the eyes, and there's basically a half circle type roof shape that we use for this, and that's about it. And even though this is fairly simple, this was not easy to do, believe it or not. And I tried some other things with it, but I think we can get by with doing something like this. So we're gonna give this a try. We're gonna give this pumpkin a try and see how you do with it. This is exercise 7B, and I don't even know if there'll be a 7C at this point, but we'll see how we do with this, because this will be nice for October. So let's get started. So I'm going to sign back into my student account that I made, not my instructor account, but my student account, just to make sure I'm doing it just like you are. So I'm going to sign in, and you could just use your email if that's the way you created it last time. Hopefully you remember your password. And when you log in, you should see the exercise that you did the first time, 7A, cube 3 holes, and you don't have to join class again. I checked to see if I just make a new design, if I could see it from my instructor mode, and I can. So you don't have to do anything else. As long as you join the class, you should be fine. So we're going to create a new design, and we'll call it 7B Pumpkin. So we'll go up here, we'll call it 7B-Pumpkin. And we're going to build our pumpkin. We're going to see how this goes. And the first thing we're going to do, just like last time, let's edit our grid, and let's do it at 100 by 100. We'll do it the same way we did last time. And I'll just update grid. I'll put in my numbers, then I'll update grid. So it's a little bit smaller, so then we have those 10 blocks by 10 blocks. And also, I'll bring my ruler out to help us navigate a little bit. I'll drag it out here. And again, we can just count over 5. There's 5. And then count from the front or back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just so it's in the middle. I'll zoom in. Now, I'm using a mouse right now, so I'm going to scroll wheel my mouse in, and I'll move it to the center here. I'm grabbing this thing, this little circle here, and I'm just kind of snapping it here. And remember, when it says use midpoint, we want to click on that because we want to use midpoint. And I'll just zoom back just to make sure it is in the middle, and it is. So I'll zoom back in, and I'll use midpoint. And that's all I need to do. So that way 0, 0 is in the middle, and everything is measured from the middle of objects, including the spheres. So let's drag in a sphere. And let's put it at 0, 0 to start. And once we do, we could put this away. And we can make it orange. That'll be at least a start to getting it to look like a pumpkin. And over here, we can make it a little smoother. I didn't do this last time, but you could put more steps on here to make it a little bit smoother. But you can make it smoother, so I'm going to make it maybe like 24, just to make it look a little smoother, and see how that works. And it's 20 high, it's 20 across, and it's 20 that way. And let's put it at 0, 0. To do that, I have to I'm going to use my right mouse here and move. This is at 2, so I'm going to put that at 0. So I'm more concerned about my X, Y, and over here it's at -2. It's kind of hard to see, but it's right over where it's doing the length of it. So I'm going to go where it says -2, and I'll put in 0 there. So it's right in the middle now. And again, I'm right mouse clicking to kind of move around. It just looks like a basketball right now, and it looks like it's sitting right on the plane, and it is. And I'll zoom in a little bit. And what I'll do next is change it from being 20 in depth. I know I just changed that, but let me make that 5. So it's basically like I don't know, more like a pancake kind of looking thing, like a pillow maybe. Maybe it's kind of like a pillow, like kind of a round pillow that could go on like a bar stool or something like that. So anyway, we have this pillow shape here. Actually, let me make it a little bit bigger. I'll make it like 8. And now it's a little more football shaped, and we'll see how that works. It's 8, so it's still like a big pill. It's like a big Advil, except it's gigantic. So we're going to start with that. And what we're going to do is rotate it and flip it around, so when you see it from the side, like this side here, that's going to be like the ridges of it, and hopefully that'll look okay. And We could always undo it if it doesn't look okay. So we'll see how this goes. Now, I'm going to view from the top. And I'm going to look down on this like football looking thing. And remember, they have a rotate thing here. And I'm going to go find the rotate if I can hover over this. And I'm going to make sure I'm in orthographic view. So let me click on here again. And there's the rotate thing there. I actually don't want to rotate it yet. So let me undo that. But there's the rotate thing. What I want to do is I want to make a copy. So I'm going to duplicate. And then I'm going to rotate it. And I'll do it, maybe I'll go in here so it rotates at kind of a locked amount. There it's going to the 22.5. It's going from here and I'm rotating one. So I made a copy, I duplicated it, and instead of rotating out here, which you could do something out here, I guess, at 30 degrees or something like that. Maybe that's better. Maybe let's try that. I'll rotate it 30 degrees. Now if you go in here, it kind of locks in. So I'll go out here, I'll drag out here, and I'll go to about 30 degrees. And I'll leave go. So I rotated my copy. So it's hard to see, but that's the original, this thing here, and that's the copy. And now if you hit this again, it's going to repeat and do what you just did. So I'm going to click it, click it, click it, click it. And I think that's good. Actually, that's perfect. So 30 degrees, I think if you do like 360 divided by 30, you might get 12 altogether. So there might be 6 and 6. There might be 12 altogether. That may look okay. Now it still looks like a basketball, so I think what I'm going to do is make a copy and kind of put two together so it's a little bit wider. But before we do that, we want to group all these things together because remember, we have like 12 shapes here, I think. And if you're not sure, highlight all of them. And it says 6. Oh, right, there's 6. There's 12 sides to them. But there's only 6 shapes altogether. So that's right. And what we're going to do is we're going to group them. Now we didn't make anything with whole color, so nothing's going to knock out. They're just going to become one. So I'll group everything, and hopefully I got all of them. And now that it's one big group, because it's still saying shape, because now if I click on it, it should say one shape here. And I'm going to make this wider. Instead of 20, I don't know if I'm going to double it. Maybe I'll try 30 and see what that looks like. And that looks okay. I still think it would look better with 2 ovals together. And let me try that. Let me go back and put 2 of them together. So actually what I'll do is I'll go from the top. And I'll view from my top. If you view from the front, and then go up here, view from the top. So now I'm viewing my pumpkin from here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy and move one over. And this thing I'm going to move over to about, if it's going to the left, that would be like negative, let's try -4, see what this looks like. And then I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm going to put this one, now I don't know which one I have selected, but I assume it's the one I just duplicated. And I'm going to put this one at 4 and see what that looks like. I don't know if this is too much. If not, we can go and do it again. I don't want it to look like twin. That might be too much. I mean, they kind of look like 2. I don't want them to look like 2 of them. So actually what I'll do is I'll delete this one. So I'll click on the second one I just made, and I'll delete it. And I'll click on this one again, and I'll just put this at -2. That's what's nice about the ruler. I'll put that at -2, and then I'll duplicate again. And this one I'll put at 2. And hopefully this will look a little better. And that looks a little more pumpkin-like. So that looks pretty good, I think. I mean, we could group them together and even try to stretch them a little bit more. You could still group these because there's 2 of them now. You can see there's 2 shapes, and then you could group them. And then it says 24 if you want to go and make it like 26 and just see what that looks like. That's the width there, and that looks okay. I think I like that. I think that's working. And again, this isn't what I did last time, so I'm doing some of this on the fly here, but that's the idea of experimenting with a 3D program that we haven't used before. So that's the body of the pumpkin. So that looks okay. And what I'm going to do next is try to put a stem on it. Now, I tried different things for stems. I even tried drawing this little squiggle shape and rotating it around. And the best thing and the easiest thing I came up with is using this paraboloid shape and then chopping off the top and twisting it a little. So I'm going to try that. So I'm going to go home here and zoom in, and I'll put it in perspective so it looks a little better. That way I'll drop this thing on here. There's my paraboloid. And I'll make it green because at least that'll look like a stem, I guess. And there it is. And I guess I'll make it a little bit taller. So let me put this thing away. And as far as the height, it's 20 for the height. So maybe I'll make it, 24 or something. I'll make it a little bit taller for now. Now, it's obviously way too big, so we have to scale the whole thing down. But what I actually want to do is kind of view it from the front. And then what I'll do is I'll go back home and zoom in. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag out a cube and chop off the top of this. So I'm going to drag this in and then view from the front. And if you have problems going to the front, go back and put it in this mode, and then just click right where it says front, and then it should line it up. And I'll zoom in a little. I'm going to hold my shift key and use my right mouse button, and I'm going to move this thing up, and I'm just going to chop off the top of this. Now, and you can grab this and move it over too. You only have to move it up with that arrow. Now, I don't know if it's in the right spot, so I got to move to the side, and obviously it's not. So now I got to move this thing over here. Now it's there, and I got a view from the front. It looks okay from the front, looks okay. So it's right on top, so that's good. And I want to make this cube. Now I'm viewing from the back, which is okay, but I'll go back to the front. And I'm going to make that negative color, that whole color. And then I'm going to shift click on this thing, on my paraboloid. And when I have them both selected, if you remember, if you group them, it'll chop that off. So there's my stem. Now, it's not perfect, and it's not a great looking stem, but it's something. So we're going to go with that. So I'm going to go to the front here, and I'm just going to move it up and move it over so it's kind of on the pumpkin. It looks like a big hat right now. And now to scale things, you can move this thing down, but I think what I'll do is I'll just use the numbers. It says 19, 20, and 20, I think. So I'll move around here a little bit. So it's 20 and 20. They're almost all the same, actually. So maybe I'll make it like, I'll start with this. I'll make it like half the size. 10 for the X. I'll make it 10 for that. And I'll make this like 9, because that's kind of in proportion. And it still looks a little big. Maybe I'll make this, maybe make it a little skinnier. I'll make it 9, and I'll make this one 9. And I'll make this 8. And now I'll view from the front again, and I'll just move it down into the pumpkin a little bit. Now it looks off a little bit, so I can move it over. I can drag it over. So I'll just view from the top. And you can see that's not where I want it to be. So let me click off and click on this thing, and I'll just physically move it kind of to the center point. And I think I can have this at 0, because we're still using that. If you hear a banging, that's my mouse. I'm not used to using a mouse. And this one I'm putting at 0. And that's kind of in the center. So it's not a good looking stem. And I think what I might have done was like rotate it a little bit. Just rotate it slightly, and then maybe moved it down inside the pumpkin, just so it looks a little better. And I think after looking at it, I think I'm still going to make it thinner. Maybe I'll make it was like 9. Maybe I'll make it 7, and I'll make this one 7, and I'll leave that the way it is up there. So that looks okay. Now, the only thing you could do here is kind of almost take another one and flatten it down, or take a cone and flatten it down. There's no real easy way to make the pumpkin part that's going in there look any better. So actually, you know what? I think I'm just going to leave it alone. I think I'm going to leave it like that instead of trying to make some green going around it. I'm going to leave it like that for now. So that's my stem with a paraboloid that was chopped off, rotated a little bit, and scaled, and a bunch of spheres down here that were flipped around. So I think we're okay so far. So I'm going to take a break here. I'll leave that as part 1. And for part 2, I'm going to go back here and try to put just 2 triangles and a mouth on here. And we'll finish this thing off and see how it looks. So we'll be back for part 2 of 7B Pumpkin.